Hello. In our last video we looked at optimizing some code that was a little bit messy, I guess is the easiest way to put it. It probably evolved over several different iterations and different developers and different plans on what to do with it, and got it to a point where we had removed a lot of the additional checks and executions and steps to get down to something that's pretty streamlined. We also looked at removing all the echo statements and combining the output into a single string that then later on got echoed. The next step we're going to look at doing is what is all of this in here, and try to separate this out from the logic so that we can have our presentation all centralized in one place, easier to design and to tweak for the user interface. If we take a look at it here, you'll see that we are working in the private messaging file, and again this section is for composing the messages. And we start off with the form. We've got a table and a cell with the label of 2 in it. Well, let's just kind of look at what the form looks like in the actual CMS. So we go to our inbox. I'm already logged in, and if I hit send, you'll see that there's really just 3 fields on here: the to or the recipient, the subject line, the message body, and then a couple of buttons here to submit or send the message and to clear the form for anything else. We also have a cancel here as part of the page load. It's being retrieved here. So 3 fields is all we got, plus a couple of buttons. And if we go back and look in here, we do have an input field here, but this one is hidden, as is this one. And those are to cover instances where you already know the recipient because you're replying to a message, as we are here. We are in the reply. If we're sending to a specific member because of a link in their profile or somewhere else in the CMS, we already know who that recipient is. Here we don't know who the recipient is. It's a completely new message, so we need a list of users we can send messages to. Next we have the input for the subject, and we have the beginning of the text area, and down here is we have another hidden field with the name of op and a value of submit. Plus we also have a submit button, so these we can probably consolidate. We also have an reset button, and that's about it. So we do have a form class that handles all of this, so we're just going to create that right now and create a form object. And here we are. It is going to be a new ICMS form, and we'll use the theme form, which is a styled form, so we have CSS and things that can go along with it. What we need is a title, the name of the form, what action to take, and if we want to specify a method, default is post, and whether or not we need to add a token for a security token. So we do this, and our title, initially you can see here there is no title, so that's just going to be blank. The name of the form, kind of an odd name, but we'll use that instead. And the action is right here. We'll just grab that, and we're going to need to preserve some quote and change that here because it's doing a few other things. And that is all we need to do to start our form. Pretty simple. Next, you'll see that we need to have our subject or our recipient field, and that starts here and it ends down here. So we can either we have some logic that goes on in here, so we will place our field method down here. We're going to do for the form, we can add an element, and the element that we want to add in this case, I'm going to use a generic one for right now, and they've also got it right here for us, is a select user element. And when we need to add in a couple of other things based on these different conditions up ahead of us. Sometimes we already know that user ID, so we can pass that into this. Now the parameters for here, I'll just type this in, and we also need to go some kind of user ID. We don't know exactly what that is right now, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So that's what we're looking for. So our user is the caption, and we need to add our caption in because that is right here, the to portion of the form, and we'll just change that there. And that is the name of the field is the to user ID. That's the parameter that we'll be getting from our post and our get information. The next thing is whether or not we want to include anonymous in the list. We don't. And then finally, this would be the pre-selected user if we know what that is. If it's not, we need to pass it in as a null. And that's the case right here where it's not a reply. It's not a message being sent directly to a specific user. So we will need to create a list right here, and we want to give the value of null so that we get a complete list and nothing has been pre-selected. Now in this portion where we're sending it to a specific user, we are going to identify that as the value here is what we're going to pass through. So we're going to add it there. And then in this case, the user ID is going to equal this value in this part of the HTML output right there. So we just copy that and we'll put it right here. And now what we have is we're going to add a new user select element labeled with to. It's going to be called to user ID. It's not going to include the anonymous users, where it can't send a message to somebody that doesn't have a member profile. And we're going to pre-select the user ID, which we have determined up above here. So that is our first field on the form. The next field on the form is the subject field. And this note that we made last time based on the code we saw, that they had a condition that if the subject was blank, we need to label it as required. Actually, the subject is always required, so we will put that in our form field declaration here. So we're going to add another form element, and this time it's going to be a new SMS form elements, and it's going to be a text area. And what we need to have in here are a few other parameters to tell it what we want it to label it as. So our subject label is right here. So that becomes our first parameter. The next parameter is, what do we call this field? Well, we have it right here, subject. And then we need to have some other parameters of a minimum, it's a regular length, a maximum length, what you see right here, size, maximum length. And then what are we going to place in that field by default? And we have that already set for us. All right. Here. So that's what we're going to be mimicking. So we've now just taken care of our subject form field. And what we have next is our message form field, which actually we are creating. We're going to do it right here. And we know that what needs to go there is this. And that we don't need this particular line, just to kind of make it a little bit easier to identify. We've been putting things afterwards, so this is the new subject line. And then we have this rendering that goes on. So what we have here now is we need to add in, and now we need to take a look at this a little bit, is we have a hidden field with the name of op and a value of submit that's here no matter what. We have a security token, and we have a submit button with a name of submit but a value of submit and a language constant. So are we evaluating op based on the parameter being passed in either the get or the post? And if it is, we need to make sure that we get that correct. So if we look up here, and actually let's just do a search for op, and we'll start and we'll find it. And first we're setting op. Now we are, here we go, we are comparing it to submit, and we're comparing it to submit. So we have some text comparison going on here. So if we look at combining that hidden field with the button, we can we need to watch what we do with these here. So let's close this and go back down to our little spot down here. So again, we're going to add some more elements here. Element, and this time we are adding in a button. So we could add a hidden field, but we actually don't need to do that for the op. And we're going to do a button. And the caption of our button, we don't need to display anything in the caption of the button. But we do need to give it a name, and what we want it to be named is op, because that's the value we want to pass back into the form. We do want to have some kind of a label that goes into it. And it is our submit. And then we also want to give it a name. Or, oh, sorry. Alright, this is actually, I'm sorry, this is the type. If we look at this, that is the type of the button. So it's a button, a submit, or a reset. So we want this to be a submit button. So that takes care of actually these two, this input right here with a hidden, and we also have this one taken care of. We need to deal with the security token, and we also need to deal with the clear button. So we are basically going to copy this, put it here, but this time it's not going to be a called op. The name, it doesn't have one. And it's not going to be submit, it's going to be clear. And this one is going to be a reset. Okay, so we have caption, name, value, type. We have no caption for either of these buttons. We have a name for the submit button, but not for the clear button. We could give it a name, it's not necessary for anything else. Now the only other thing we need to deal with is this security token. We actually have a security token that we can add in here, and that's going to be a new or a hidden one, and hidden token. And we don't need to do anything else with that, so that's all we do. Now we have created the form, we've added all of the elements. Now we need to render the form so that we can display it. So we're going to right now, I'm going to give it a variable, and we're going to do form render. So this just returns the information into this value, and instead of echoing the message template, we're going to echo this out instead. And actually, just so you can, yeah, we'll go back and we'll do it just that way. Okay, so here's what we got. We have basically eliminated the need for all of these lines, this line, this line, this line, this line, this line, this line, blank line, comment, this line, blank line. We got rid of this line. Now we duplicated that one into the next one here, so we can get rid of that line, get rid of another blank, and then we have all of this stuff we got rid of. I'm going to leave this hidden one sitting separate out here just so we can kind of break it out. Here's what's actually being rendered on the form, and this is hidden in the code of the form. Now remember earlier on we said that the subject is always required. We have, oops, and we did not get the right form field here. We only just want elements text. And one of the parameters of the element is whether or not it's required. So we need to put this down here and say that that field definitely is required. So here's what we've got it. We've got all the form fields, and we've got it being output. We've cleared away all of the extra file HTML stuff that was in here. Only thing in here is necessary and productive, easier to read. Stripped out a bunch more lines in here, so let's just save this and then export it out to my local web It's not that. And we're going to go there. Yes, we're good with that. So now we go in and remember what we saw before. If I hit send, form is being, we have our drop down, as we did before. We have our subject, which we always did, and it's flagged as required. Our message area, and now we've got our two buttons. They were side by side earlier, but now they are stacked because we've used separate form elements, and that's just the default rendering for all this. So if you want to, show that clear works, it does work. If we go to selecting a specific user and then send a private message to them, you'll see that they are in the drop down by default. Everything else again is the same. All right, let's go back and take a look. Sorry about that. I got interrupted by one of our other developers who actually was working on this private messaging features. And kind of review this a little bit to catch ourselves up. There is one thing that I remembered, that we had removed the hidden field that had the name of op and the value of submit, and we were looking at any places where the variable op was compared to submit. Because we are now passing in this different value, we need to add that as our condition or a comparison for each of those locations. So let's find them all again and do it here. Or we're going to have problems when we try to submit the form. And that's it. So we are all set here for the new form submission, and there isn't anything else we need to do other than just validate that it is working. Since I just made those couple of changes, let's update our web development area, go back into here, go to my inbox, and we'll send a new message. We will reply to a message and send a message directly to another user. All right, we're going to create a new message. Our form comes up, and we're going to send it to the neighbor and say, just saying hi. And we are going to later on. No, I don't like that. Okay, that still works. We're still going back to neighbor. Come over soon. We have treats. We will submit the form. And here's where we hopefully our debugging is all working correctly. And I didn't miss anything. Message has been posted. Perfect. Now we're going to reply to a message, and it's replying to the original sender as it should. I will add some text here and hit submit. Again, my message has been posted. I go to my inbox. Here's my new original message. We're good there. And then if I go to, here's one way I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit a view account. change this to a different user, send them a private message. Friend is the selected one here. Subject is welcome. And then you see we have a little bit of a scrolling thing, but we're good with that for now. And message has also been posted. So I go back to my inbox. I've not read this one yet. We did that. Okay. So the only thing to validate that our other messages worked is to do log in as them. I have a message. It did come, and that looks good there. And then we also had our neighbor. Oops. And they also received their message. So it looks like all of our changes are working as designed. So that's a great thing. All right, so look at we've got now is everything we are trying to do now fits into one screen, and that's really a good practice. As if you can get your entire method and everything into one screen, so you're not doing a lot of scrolling back and forth, it's much easier to follow through and for someone else to read it. Now the only thing we would be remiss if we did not do is add some comments in and say that here, and we're actually going to change that from here to we are replying to a message here, and then here we are sending directly to a member in this section, and this we are composing a new message from our inbox. That helps. Now these are all pretty self-explanatory, and these are all the different values that are there, so we won't be really adding anything more in there. So we'll save this, and once we're all done we will commit this back into my local repository, and then also push that into my upstream, removing HTML from the logic and using the form object classes to create the private message form. And as this is for ticket number 446. Yes. And as part of that whole effort there. So I'm going to commit and push. And that about takes care of it for this session. And well, my password is that. We've again gotten to the point where we've not really changed any functionality at all. We've not really added any functionality at all. But in the process, we have followed much cleaner code practices than we have in the past with this particular form and file, and it makes it so much easier in the future to go ahead and change this. Oh, I see something we missed. That should have been a in quotes, not that. This name doesn't make sense at all. I'm going to stick with it, and we'll add this one in there. It's not really, as you can see, even in that particular state, it wasn't necessary for that form to work, because we're not going back to it at all. It's the only thing that's on that particular page. But that is just, again, a better, there was no errors, you notice that. And again, commit and push, which is one of the big things for code standards, is are there any errors? And we don't have any errors in the file, and the code worked. But here again, we just need to be a little bit more cautious about what we're doing and pay attention to all the different things that are there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're really interested in what else you can dig into here, we've got lots of stuff over at the Impress CMS project. Just check us out, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.